Is a fight for freedom, old top.
I'll do it. For America.
In 2012 Republican presidential politics, Mitt Romney scored a double win Saturday. He took the main caucuses with 39% of the vote. Ron Paul came in a close second with 36%. And at CPAC, the annual gathering of conservative activists here in Washington, Mitt Romney won the straw poll with 38%. Rick Santorum came in second with 31%. At CPAC, Sarah Palin blew the lid off the conference with a fiery keynote speech. And she joins us now here in studio. Governor, welcome back to Fox News Sunday for the first time here in Washington, D.C.
In the belly of the beast. Thank you. Yes.
All right. Well, you blistered Barack Obama in your speech, and we'll get to that. You also had a message for the Republican establishment here in Washington. End the crony capitalism and bring the Tea Party into the congressional leadership. What's your point?
Absolutely. Well, those Tea Party members of Congress now, they have fulfilled their promise to the people who hired them. They had promised that they would do all that they can to rein in the growth of government. And in some ways, they've actually been punished for fulfilling their promises. They've been ostracized. They've been dismissed. They've been lied about by the president. And we would hope that the leadership in Congress, especially within our own party, that they would start at least accepting and really appreciating what these Tea Party members have done, and I would like to see them in leadership positions.
Who is, you talk about it, the Republican establishment? Who is the establishment? And is John Boehner part of the establishment? Is Mitch McConnell part of the establishment? And are they part of the problem?
I consider anyone part of the establishment. Those who today are fighting to keep the status quo. Those who are allowing government to grow. Who are allowing the president that plastic credit card that's increasing debt. And they are not engaging in that sudden and relentless reform that we need in order to defend our republic, in order to get us off this road towards bankruptcy.
So, for instance, the folks that agreed to raising the debt ceiling, the folks who agreed to tide the government over with one of these continuing resolutions, they're part of the problem?
And maybe not one specific vote that they have taken, say, to increase the debt ceiling, but that culmination of votes and support for bigger government. They are part of the problem, and much of that does have to do with an establishment that doesn't want to see a lot of change in Washington, D.C., in our federal centralized government, because they're doing just fine with the way that things are going. Even though the American people aren't doing just fine, they're hurting, and they do want to see a change.
What do you think of what White House Chief of Staff Jack Lew just had to say about the birth control flap and specifically about the idea of a health care mandate?
I was shocked at the spin in his message. He sounded like the press secretary. And I don't know why we're not arguing yet the whole basic premise of this mandate, regardless of faith-filled Americans who are offended by this assault on their freedom of religion. And the basic premise of this is government, again, mandating to private employers and to insurance companies what they must provide. What gives government the right to tell us what we must consume, what we must purchase, what we must provide our employees?
All right, but let's take a look at the overall picture, because you really were very critical of Obama yesterday in your keynote speech. The economy is improving. The unemployment rate has dropped 5 months in a row and is now down to the lowest point in 3 years. And as a result, public approval of the president, you can see it up on the screen, is up to 48%, the highest since last June. Aren't things turning around, and doesn't he now have to be favored to win re-election?
I argue those unemployment numbers, by the way, that have been released, where we're looking now at 8.3% unemployment, when really the fact is people have dropped out of the search for employment right now. The numbers have changed. I think a lot of it has to do with people just kind of giving up on finding a job right now. And I think that true numbers would reflect that. Real unemployment is above 10%, according to the experts, the economists who are really crunching numbers. So I do argue what those numbers are, but no, you ask those 13 million Americans who still can't find a job. You ask those 46 million Americans who are living in poverty, and the 23% increase in government dependency that has really made our country suffer, because we're eliminating the opportunity for all to rise and to succeed in the private sector successfully because of this government growth and this dependency. You ask those people, people, if they think they're turning around and getting better. And I bet you will hear from the average everyday American who's not part of kind of the political bubble, but is really being impacted by poor policies and failed policies of our president. And they're going to tell you that no, this president and his failed policies should not be favored to win re-election and continue down the road 4 more years of what we've just seen.
Let's turn to the Republican contest, the race for the nomination. What do you think of Mitt Romney?
I think he's a great candidate. I honestly think that we have a good slate of candidates, the 4 of them, all with their individual strengths, Chris, and each of them, I believe, they're getting stronger, they're getting better, and that's what competition provides. That's why I want to see the competition continue.
Well, it's interesting because a couple of people said to me when I told them that I was going to talk to you, and after watching your speech, in your speech you had to say this, that the party needs a candidate, and I want to get the words right, who instinctively turns to constitutional conservative principles. It's too late to teach that.
Yeah.
Do you trust that Mitt Romney is an instinctive conservative?
I trust that his idea of conservatism is evolving, and I base this on a pretty moderate past that he has had, even in some cases a liberal past. Here he agreed with mandating on a state level what his constituents needed to be provided, needed to purchase in the way of health care under Romneycare, which of course was the precursor to Obamacare. Now that's a problem, but yeah, Obamacare.
Now, that's
we'll coin that one. So it is evolving, but what I want to see is that candidate, and I believe that most voters in the GOP and independents, we will want to see that candidate whom we can trust will just inherently, instinctively turn right, always err on the side of conservatism, which means smaller, smarter government, more empowerment for the individual, for the private sector.
But it sounds like at this point you're not convinced.
I am not convinced, and I don't think that the majority of GOP and independent voters are convinced, and that is why you don't see Romney get over that hump. He's still in the 30 percentile mark when it comes to approval and primary wins and caucus wins. He still hasn't risen above that yet because we are not convinced.
But Governor, he's been running for 5 years.
And he has spent millions and millions and millions of dollars.
So what does he have to do to convince you?
Yet. He still needs to be able to articulate what his solutions are to the challenges facing America, but not just Mitt. All 4 of them. They need to quit beating each other up. We already know that the left and the media allies to the left are going to beat up our candidates. They're going to attack their reputations. They'll attack their families. We don't need to do that job for them. We need to hear from our candidates the solutions. What is their plan to get us back on the right road in America? We haven't heard that yet. The discussion needs to continue until we hear that.
How do you compare? You've been very honest about Romney. How do you compare Gingrich and Santorum?
Against one another?
Yeah.
The 2 of them? Again, everybody does have their strengths. Santorum has been quite bold about social issues that he truly believes in, and he hasn't shied away or backed off from his true foundational beliefs, and I respect that. Most people respect that. Newt has that historical perspective of how America was built, how we became so prosperous and safe and voluntarily generous, how we became an exceptional nation. That historical knowledge can be put to good use as we go forward. We have to know about our past in order to successfully proceed into the future. He brings that with him. Everybody has their strengths. I'm not going to go into their negatives because, as I say, they're already pointing out each other's negatives, and the left will do that too. They all have something to offer, and that is why this is a good democratic process in our republic.
HBO. I love looking at your face.
Yes.
HBO has a movie coming out next month called Game Change about the 2008 campaign, and Julianne Moore plays Sarah Palin. Let's watch.
Must we?
American woman!
You know what they say the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull? Lipstick.
Does she do a good Sarah Palin?
I think we're going to call that the Sarah Palin Employment Act, and you guys need to thank me for employing more people probably in their imitations of Sarah Palin than the president has put Americans to work.
So it's a stimulus act.
It is a stimulus act, yes, but oh, goodness gracious. You know, I'm really not too concerned, though, about an HBO movie based on a false narrative when there are so many other things that we need to be concerned about.
I want to ask you one more question about this, because there is a more serious side, and I want to give you an opportunity to respond, because you're right. The movie echoes the book in pursuing this narrative that you went into a funk during the campaign leading up especially to the debate. And I want to just show you some clips because this is going to be out there. Take a look.
It wasn't my fault. I wasn't properly prepped.
I miss my baby. I'm sleeping with my baby.
She's on the verge of a complete nervous breakdown.
You're telling me what to say, what to wear, how to talk. I am not your puppet.
Millions of people are going to see that.
Well, I'm sorry that millions of people are going to waste their time, and I'm sure that they have more productive and constructive things to do.
Is there any truth to that story?
I was never in a funk. Thank God I have the right perspective on what really matters in life, Chris, and there's no need to ever be in a funk when you know what right priorities are and what really matters in this life.
Are you angry? Are you upset that this story is going to get told and it'll get told to a much bigger audience?
I am ambivalent about it. I honestly will not waste my time watching it, and I encourage others to find something else more productive to do.
On a much more positive note, you have a wonderful article, I must say, that touched my heart in the latest issue of Newsweek magazine, and you can see it up on the screen, about life with Trig, your little boy, who's almost 4 now, my gosh, and has Down syndrome. And you say when he wakes up every morning, he applauds?
He teaches us more than we're ever going to be able to teach him, and that is one thing that he does. He looks around, and it seems to me that he's saying, despite what the world's going to throw at him and anybody else who may be considered a bit disadvantaged, he applauds the day, like, come on, world, show me what you got, and I'm going to handle it. And I wrote that article. I was asked to by Newsweek in response to what Rick Santorum did in publicly showing us what really true good priorities are when he got off the campaign trail in order to spend time with his special needs daughter. And I thought that was a beautiful gesture and a wonderful public testimony of putting family first that Rick did.
You say you don't teach him, he teaches all of you.
Oh, he teaches us.
And that he is a blessing.
He teaches us. And Chris, Todd and I and Trig's siblings, we went from quite a fearful time, not knowing what to expect, to this time in our life that couldn't be any better, when we see and touch and are surrounded by such love coming from this child that, again, keeps us grounded, keeps everything in perspective, and allows just kind of all the rest of the stuff on the periphery to just go away and not matter so much when we get to focus on this blessing.
Governor Palin, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. It's good to have you inside the Beltway in the real America.
In the real America. Well, happy Abraham Lincoln's birthday to you, and may we remember what he thought about Washington and how he wanted to change Washington into a voice for the people. Let us do that today.
And we should say yesterday was your birthday, so happy birthday right back to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.